let's talk about the NHL. Let's talk about this Florida Panthers team that has seemingly been doing this for some years. Let's talk about an Oilers team that wins by a touchdown in Game 4 with their backs against the wall. Tonight, what do you think reigns true? Do you think it follows suit as the NBA, where the dominant Panthers team get back to being who they were for the first 3 games, just like the Celtics did? Or is what McDavid and the Oilers started in Game 4 up in that loud barn of Edmonton going to carry on? How do you think this one goes tonight, Moose?
It's been a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde series, in my opinion. You look at the first game, the Oilers looked great for the first 2 periods there, but they couldn't solve Bobrovsky. Florida was able to lock it down in the third period and get the 3-0 win. Then Florida kind of got back to their game in games 2 and 3 and shut the Oilers down. And then, of course, what we saw in Game 4 where the Oilers exploded. But Game 1 could have been the same as Game 4. So we haven't seen both teams play their best at the same time in this series. It's going to be interesting to see the Oilers, because as the series go on to Games 5, 6, 7, the level of playing field kind of comes to a brink where both teams start to play well. Is the Oilers' best game good enough to compete with the Florida's best game? That's what we haven't seen in the series so far. My guess is we're going to see it tonight, and we're going to get the answer. But later in the series, both teams kind of find their game. You got to expect the best players to be the best players. You got to expect the goaltending to be great. You got to expect the defenses to tighten up on both sides. And if that happens, is Edmonton's best good enough to beat Florida's best?
Go ahead, AJ.
You mentioned Edmonton kind of figuring out Bobrovsky last game. Is that something that can kind of unlock a team, or like, can you figure out, hey, does a goalie have to tell, or some kind of something that he does where you figure it out and you feel like, hey, we can attack it and keep him guessing? Is that something that is actually could happen in a series like this?
Well, for one, he's been on a remarkable run. If you just look at his body work through the playoffs, it's just been incredible. And very few games have gone that way in Game 4. But you also have to look at the chances that the Oilers got. Florida got really loose in that game there. They gave the Oilers a chance to get flying up and down the ice and turn it into a track meet, and that's where Edmonton likes to live. But for good players like McDavid, Draisaitl, the guys that are expected to score, once you start to get that feel, you get the confidence back, and the game seems to open up a little bit there. Everything kind of seems to be a little bit easier on the ice. And once you give good players like that confidence, it's going to be a different story now. It's going to be hard to kind of get that genie back in the bottle for Florida. We've seen them do it for the last couple of years. When they get to their game, they play a stifling defense, and more importantly, they're really on the forecheck. They got a little loose in the Game 4. The defense and the forwards had a big gap between them. They weren't connected, and when they did that, the Oilers' star players were able to take advantage of it, especially McDavid and they're the guys that are expected to score.
One of those goals there that we showed during the highlight, obviously they scored 8 of them. So it is, I forget, it might have been the third one we showed. It was literally 5-on-3, and they were in complete unison. It looked like practice. It looked like literally a practice rep of 5-on-3 as they just casually boom, boom, bang, goal. And then it was a chill celebration too. Like, yeah, that was the easiest rep of all time. Once you take the top off the bucket, sometimes it gets a little bit bigger, which goes back to a conversation about the Panthers, one of their best players. Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, Moose, so when you're looking at Bobrovsky, obviously throughout the playoffs, next to maybe Shesterkin, he's been the best goalie out there. After a game like that, when you get pulled and let in as many goals as he did, when he's been so dominant, do you think any doubt starts to creep in his head a little bit? Like, oh, okay, like we let them get back into this series, and for Edmonton now, are they just dumping rubber on net, just trying to get as many shots as they can at him to kind of open that seal again tonight?
Dump rubber.
That's a great question. Look at it, everybody's human, and the fact that Bobrovsky, the way he's played, if anything, it's going to give the Oilers confidence that they can score on him. Now, I would say that in order to be playing at this time of year and to be under the pressure that these players are expected to play and how they're expected to play and how they're able to, supposed to be able to stop the puck and score the goals, you have to be unbelievably tough mentally. There's a lot of outside chatter that starts to come in from the media and the press and guys that haven't scored and they're not playing up to expectations. Is he hurt? And all. All that is true at this time of year, but you have to be so tough mentally that you don't let it creep into your consciousness. And that's one of the toughest. We always talk about the skill level. We always talk about how hard it is to play and all the skating and technique and skill levels and all that. But we don't spend enough time talking about, to be a champion, you got to be tough mentally. You cannot be afraid of the moment. You can't let failure dictate how you're going to play from shift to shift, never mind game to game and series to series. You got to be able to have enough fortitude and resilience to go muck through it all, because it's hard. And of course, when you're expected to score and the other team's trying to shut you down, it's hard. When you're expected to stop the puck and not let easy goals in, that's hard. And if at any time you start to crack mentally and start to second guess yourself, that's when bad things happen. Now we'll see whether that they've been able to get Bobrovsky. His record shows that he's able to rebound after a tough loss and get right back to his game. It'll be interesting to see what happens tonight.
Knock if you buck, Bob. Can't wait to watch him get back in between the pipes down there in South Florida. Speaking of South Florida, massive Panthers fan has a question for Moose. Go ahead, D-Bucks.
We need the whole squad to rebound, obviously. And you spoke about it here on the program a couple of times, how hard closeout games are. And obviously coming from Edmonton after an embarrassing loss like that, do you think that's more of a, I know you say you're not really looking for motivation, but more of a motivating factor now that you kind of got humble at this Panthers team with another opportunity to close out in Game 5?
Well, that's interesting because, you try to kind of compartmentalize game to game, and a lot of players would tell you that the momentum doesn't carry over from one game to the next, and that is probably true. In my experiences, being in the situation, coming home up 3-1 to close it out, it happened in 1994. We lost the first game at home, won the next three, and there we come back to New York from Vancouver. The parade routes have mapped out, the celebrations, everybody's in town. Where's the party going to be? Your babysitters, family, and it's hard to win that game because of the distractions that are around it. For Edmonton, they're coming in here. There's nobody around. It's them against the world. They're down 3-1. There's nothing to lose. The pressure. They're still hungry, but that little bit of difference here can sometimes tip the scale one way or another. It took us to the games. And of course, in '94, went back to Vancouver and got beat there, and then had to come home and win Game 7. But this is a hard game to win. Game 5, there's more pressure on Florida tonight than you would think, being up 3-1 in the series, coming home and having a chance to win the Stanley Cup. It's a hard game to win. We'll see how they handle it.
Okay. Speaking of having celebrations already planned, I see you've been wearing that elbow room hat. You know what I mean? We've been seeing the elbow room hat. Obviously, one of the greatest bars in the world. Everybody knows about it that has gone down to Lottie Dottie. You obviously had a time in Edmonton as well. Has this been a run for you where you've been able to maybe receive some flowers for everything you've given to hockey? Have you felt that while covering the finals here with ESPN? Because the way PK Subban is keeping us updated on how this is all going, front of the program, it feels like you're getting a chance to hear from the hockey world about their appreciation for everything you've done for sport. Have you felt that?
I have felt that. It was amazing going back to Edmonton, even here in Florida. So many great hockey fans. But, I played a lot of years in the playoffs, and the playoffs become a war of attrition for a player. Like, you got to be tough mentally, you got to be tough physically, you got to stay in. But I'll tell you what, being on the media side, this is a war of attrition, boy. That's a
lot of booze. Yeah, I saw. Hey, were those big old beers? Are we having beers at night, or are we having mixed drinks? What are we doing right here? Are we having barley sandwiches?
I'm a tequila drinker. I got to keep it real with the tequila.
I appreciate that. We're not feeling any bloated. We're housing tequila at Elbow Room. Oh my God, Messier, you're the man, dude. You are the absolute man.
Having a good time.
As you should. You've earned it, and we've appreciated the way you guys have covered the NHL all year, and certainly in this playoffs. We'll be watching tonight. What time do we start tonight?
I think we're 7 o'clock on the Point, the pregame show, and then 8 o'clock on ABC. Come and see us. We're going to have a good time again tonight.
We cannot wait. We appreciate you. And tonight's set will probably look a little different than the Edmonton one.
Hopefully.
Let's all not get surprised.
Hey, the set in Edmonton was perfect. That's just what Edmonton is. It was awesome.
I heard they were on top of you guys. It felt like that, huh?
Oh, yeah. That crowd, I tell you, I've been in a lot of arenas, a lot of big moments, a lot of fan bases cheering their teams, but that was incredible. Anybody that was there will remember that the rest of their lives.
Hockey's awesome.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Awesome.
Mark Messier, we appreciate you.